Hey, this is Doug, and we're here at the Daniel Boone Replica Cabin at the Whippoorwill Academy in Ferguson, North Carolina. Katie?
We are here today just showing some representations of the foods and the recipes that would have been used during the time of Daniel and Rebecca Boone. We have used the different foods that are available or would have been available during that time that would have grown and been harvested at this time in the state of North Carolina.
Many of the crops you're going to see here, we've got potatoes and turnips and carrots and such like that. The root crops that they'd be harvesting this time of year and putting back to help survive the winter. We've got some pork that we'll be cooking up later on, and some bacon that we've seasoned, and just a lot of different things. Cornmeal that would have been grown and then ground at a local mill, or even hand pounded here.
One of our main staples of what we do talk about during these demonstrations is corn. During that time period, they would have called corn the king of the grains because there were so many different uses for it. You would have your cornmeal, you would have had your popcorn, you would have had parched corn, which they would have fixed into a drinkable corn. They would have had corn on the cob, cream corn, they would have made their corn breads. During that time period, they had to use every single food that they could get their hands on to the full extent to make it last and to go as far as they could during their meals.
The winters are long and hard back then. You would have to chop down trees, of course, store up your firewood, and then your root crops, like I said, been setting back in a root cellar of some type to keep them living, viable.
The recipes that we will be demonstrating today were recipes that we were found in the old cookbooks that we have. So everything here would have tasted and smelled the way that we are going to be preparing for the people who come and see us today.
When Daniel and Rebecca Boone got to this Ferguson area, it would have been around 1766. When they arrived here, they had 5 children with them and built a cabin much the same size. Some of the stones in the fireplace actually came from the old Boone cabin site. So they would have had 5 children in here, and by the time they left in 1774, they had 8 children living in this cabin. You'll see the size of it to see that it would have been a tight fit for everybody.
One of the interesting things about the Boones to me, everybody knows Daniel Boone, but not many people know the history of Rebecca Boone. She held down the fort. She raised the children here. She cooked for them. She was actually a really good shot. So she hunted. She prepared their food. She was a weaver. She preserved the food for the kids so that they would have enough food for over the winters. She did textile weaving. She sold her goods that she did make at the local general stores. She was very frugal. She was a force to be reckoned with, and she held it down for the family. She was just a remarkable, strong woman.
When they arrived here in '66, there were 3 Ferguson brothers that came over from Scotland, and they settled in this area and had their families. So the Boones were close friends with the Fergusons who lived in this area. Many of their descendants still live here. This Whippoorwill Academy is proof that one of them still lives here. But it's a really neat little community. It's a great historical site, and I recommend bring a family or bring a school load over here and come visit, learn something. But what we have here is a cake of cornbread that we put together and just got it out of the Dutch oven there. This is some butter I churned up yesterday. Back in the olden days, you would have used anything that you could. Like in this case, I made these bowls out of gourds, which is something they would have done. Anybody would have done if you didn't have access to pottery or anything. The closest pottery during the 1760s when Boone was here was Old Salem, which was New Salem. Then it was just Salem. They had the Moravian towns of Bethania, and Salem, and they had a potter there. But to travel that far to get pottery was pretty far distance. The closest blacksmith would have been David Allen in Elkin, which would have at that time been called Allen's Settlement. That's also where the Moravian settlements got their ironwork, was from what is now Elkin. and Allen's ironworks was set up behind the modern day Elkin Library. So if you know where that's at or want to visit that, it's a great library, and you're standing on a historical site that predated the American Revolution. But as far as nails and hinges and stuff, Daniel Boone would have had to travel to the Allen settlement to pick that up.
During that time period, they did not have a grocery store right down the road, so they would have had to grow all of their foods and learn the best ways to preserve those foods, so they would have lasted not only when they were gathering in the spring, summer, early fall, but throughout the winter months too. We have researched and found that not only did they salt their foods to keep them preserved, but they also sugared their foods, like their fruits. They preserved them in honey or molasses. They also would smoke their foods to keep them preserved over the winter months, or they would pack them with into jars with vinegar to pickle their foods. We've actually got homemade pickles here as a representation of the pickled foods. We have the dried fruits here. We have honey here as a representation of what they would have used as a food preservation method, since bacteria can't grow in honey. They would have had to have been very intelligent, trial and error of course, but they would have had to do their very best to keep things preserved for as many months as the winter lasted. I did read in a book one time that before the ground was frozen solid during the winter, they would actually dig up pieces of turf and bring them in and put them next to the fireplace, so over the winter they could have an early start to their seeds. They would start seeds in that turf, and then when the winter snows melted and it was time to start their next year's garden, they would bring that out and already have a starting of seedlings to put in the ground. They were inventive and creative, but they had to be.
The Boones were actually from Burke County, Pennsylvania, and as they called it the Great Wagon Road. It left Philadelphia and it traveled south. Two surveyors went out and surveyed the thing as far as the Yadkin Valley area, which is here, and one of them was a guy named Peter Jefferson, which was Thomas Jefferson's dad. The Great Wagon Road would be like a modern day highway, but when you say highway, it was rough, up and over mountains, through woods, stumps and stuff. So wagons, if you made a couple miles a day with your wagons, you were probably pretty lucky. So it took months to travel from Philadelphia down to this way. And by 1750-ish, Squire and Sarah Boone, which were Daniel Boone's parents, arrived on the east side of the Yadkin, and which is now Davidson County, and set up a house there. To this day, there's a thing called the Boone Spring, the Boone Cave, the Boone Ford, all around that area that still hold the names where they lived. By, like I said, 1766, Daniel's already married, has children, and they spread their wings and moved to the what they call the upper Yadkin Valley, which is this area right here. And
the Great Wagon Road, how did they figure out where to put it?
It was following old game trails that the Indians had set up. So.
I was not always into history. I got into that through my dad, but through him too, I have realized the importance of keeping history alive, and that is why we are here today. One of the big reasons why we're here. He has passed it on to my generation. I am teaching my children to keep it on in their generation, because we have a rich history that is being lost. If we don't tell the stories, if we don't share the history, if we don't show the foods and the recipes, they'll be lost forever, and no one will even know that they've been lost because nobody shared them with them. So that's one of the reasons why we're here and why we love doing what we do, because we learn as we're researching so that we can teach others. And it sparks something in people to know where you come from and what the foods would have been that your great-grandparents would have had and their children. And maybe even some of these recipes end up being familiar to people because their grandparents made them for them when they were children. And it's a neat time to get together, to know where we come from, and that we all end up coming from really good stock.